Stop this wedding right now, because the truth won't forgive anyone. Pause, the words cracked through the grand hall like a thunderclap, freezing the glittering celebration in its tracks. Hook, can you imagine the courage it takes to halt a fairy tale wedding with a single shout? In the heart of downtown New York, inside a marble-lined courthouse turned ballroom for the city's elite, the silence was deafening. Politicians, CEOs, and socialites sat stunned, their champagne glasses suspended midair as the outburst echoed. At the center of it all stood Daniel Whitmore, heir to one of the largest real estate empires in the country. Dressed in a flawless tailored suit, he was seconds away from pledging his life to the radiant and seemingly perfect Vanessa Harrington. To the outside world, it was a fairy tale, wealth, beauty, and power converging in a spectacle no one dared question. But the voice that shattered the illusion came from the unlikeliest place: Sarah Miller, the nanny. Clad in her worn navy uniform, her calloused hands gripping the shoulder of a little girl, she looked out of place among the diamonds and designer gowns. And yet, her eyes burned with a conviction stronger than fear. Beside her stood Emily, Daniel's 6-year-old daughter, clutching her doll like a shield. Her small, trembling voice had been warning for days, "Daddy, she doesn't like me. She has ugly secrets." Few had listened. Fewer still had believed. Hook, what secrets could a child uncover that the elite overlooked? Now, with every eye on her and the weight of Manhattan's high society pressing down, Sarah knew she had only one chance to expose the truth before Daniel handed over not just his heart, but his fortune, to a woman built on lies. Emily had seen it first. In the quiet corners of the Whitmore estate, where adults never bothered to look. One afternoon, while hiding behind the heavy oak doors of her father's office, she overheard Vanessa speaking in a hushed, clipped tone on the phone. The words didn't make sense to a child: encrypted transfers, digital signatures, offshore accounts, but they sounded wrong, dangerous, shaken. Emily ran to the only person she trusted, Sarah. The little girl's eyes were wide as she whispered, "She has a ring that blinks, but it's not a toy." Sarah froze. To anyone else, it might have seemed like childish imagination, but to Sarah, who had once studied business administration before life forced her into domestic work, the detail cut deep. A metallic silver ring, glowing faintly whenever it brushed against laptops, tablets, or documents. That was no accessory. That was a device. From that day on, Sarah watched Vanessa with the eyes of a hawk. She noticed the way Vanessa refused to use ordinary pens, always insisting on her own. She saw the subtle flash of blue and green light whenever the ring neared a screen. Each flicker whispered of invisible transactions, of stolen power masked beneath a flawless smile. Sarah's chest tightened with dread. Daniel wasn't just marrying the wrong woman, he was walking into a trap that could cost him everything. But what could a nanny say in a world built on wealth and appearances? If she stayed silent, Daniel would lose not only his fortune but his very identity, forged by digital fraud. If she spoke, she risked being ridiculed, fired, crushed beneath Vanessa's influence. The morning of the wedding arrived like the opening act of a Broadway show. Outside the courthouse, white roses blanketed the steps, while luxury cars jammed the street, reporters battling for the perfect shot. Inside, a grand piano played softly, the air thick with perfume and whispered deals. Guests clinked glasses, their laughter hiding greed, while Vanessa basked in their admiration, her diamond-encrusted gown shimmering under the chandeliers. But in the shadows of that glittering world, Sarah stood with Emily. Her heart pounding like war drums, the little girl tugged at her sleeve. Whispering urgently, "The ring is glowing again, Auntie." Sarah swallowed hard. She had only one chance to act, and if she failed, Daniel Whitmore's life would be signed away with the stroke of a pen. The courthouse gleamed with the illusion of perfection, but Sarah Miller felt the walls closing in. Every note of the piano echoed like a countdown, every laugh from the crowd another reminder that time was running out. Vanessa Harrington sat poised at the front, her posture regal, her chin tilted just enough to project triumph. To the guests, she looked like a queen about to claim her crown. To Sarah, she looked like a predator circling her prey. Sarah had lain awake the entire night before, turning over the same thought again and again: if I stay silent, Daniel will sign away his life. If I speak, I could lose mine. The power Vanessa carried wasn't only wealth, it was reputation, influence, the kind that could destroy anyone who dared oppose her. Yet, when Sarah thought of Emily's wide, frightened eyes, the choice became clear: she had to act. So, she made a plan. Hidden inside the pocket of her faded uniform was an old cell phone, with the recorder already running. It wasn't much, but she hoped it could capture the telltale metallic click of Vanessa's ring. She had also whispered instructions to Emily, at the critical moment. The little girl was to drop her doll near the signing table, forcing Vanessa to bend down. Forcing the device on her finger to reveal its secret. Now. As the ceremony reached its climax, Sarah's chest tightened with each passing second. The judge adjusted his glasses, preparing the final documents. Daniel smiled nervously, his hand trembling as he reached for the official pen. Emily clutched Sarah's hand so tightly it hurt. Sarah leaned down, her voice barely audible. Remember what we practiced, sweetheart? When I nod, you let the doll go. Emily's eyes, brave and steady despite her 6 years, flicked toward her father. But will he believe us? She whispered. Sarah brushed a hand over her hair. He will. The truth always finds a way. Across the room, Vanessa's diamond ring pulsed faintly, a glow that only Sarah seemed to notice. Vanessa's lips curled into a subtle smile as she prepared to seize everything Daniel had built. And then, the judge spoke the words Sarah had been dreading. It is time for the signatures. The hall seemed to contract, breath caught in Sarah's throat. Emily's doll dangled precariously from her hand. This was the moment, the fragile, terrifying instant where either their plan would succeed, or the Whitmore legacy would be erased with a single stroke of Vanessa's counterfeit power. The judge slid the pen across the table with ceremonial gravity, his voice solemn as he announced, "Please step forward to sign." The guests leaned in, eager to witness history. Flashbulbs erupted like tiny lightning strikes. Daniel Whitmore's hand hovered, his chest rising with shallow breaths. Beside him, Vanessa Harrington radiated confidence, her diamond necklace glinting like a weapon under the chandeliers. And then, Sarah gave a subtle nod. Emily loosened her grip. The porcelain doll slipped from her hands, tumbling to the polished floor with a soft clatter. The sound was small, but in the tense silence of the courtroom turned ballroom, it seemed deafening. Vanessa bent gracefully to retrieve it, her face locked in a false smile. That's when it happened. The ring pulsed violently, blue and green light flashing in rapid bursts. A sharp electronic beep echoed from a nearby security tablet. Guests turned their heads in confusion. One man whispered, "Did you hear that?" Another frowned, tugging at his cufflinks as if trying to steady himself. Daniel's brows knit together. "What was that?" he asked aloud. Vanessa forced a laugh, straightening quickly. "Just interference. These devices are always so unreliable," she said, her voice brittle at the edges. But Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. The phone in her pocket had caught everything, the glow, the sound, the proof. Then, without warning, the giant projector screen meant to showcase photos of the happy couple flickered. A black screen replaced the floral montage. Numbers, symbols, bank accounts, names tied to foreign banks, one after another, streams of fraudulent contracts spilled across the display for all to see. Gasps spread like wildfire. A socialite covered her mouth. An investor muttered, "That's Daniel's digital signature." The room erupted into whispers, half disbelief, half outrage. Daniel staggered back, his face pale. No, I never authorized this." Sarah seized the moment, her voice cutting clear through the chaos. "That ring," she pointed at Vanessa's hand, "isn't jewelry. It's a digital key. It forges signatures, transfers assets, wipes accounts clean." The crowd silenced, every eye snapping toward Vanessa. For the first time, the mask of poise cracked. Sweat glistened on her temple as she clutched her left hand, trying to conceal the damning piece of technology. "Lies," she snapped. "She's a nanny, nothing more. You take her word over mine." But then, another sound shattered her defense. Click. The ring emitted another metallic trigger, this time activating contracts across the screen in red letters stamped, "Authorized." The evidence was undeniable. "God," whispered one of the groomsmen. She was about to steal everything. The hall dissolved into chaos. Guests rose from their seats, filming with their phones. Murmurs swelled into shouts, "Fraud! Arrest her!" Daniel turned slowly, his gaze burning into Vanessa like a blade. "You are going to destroy me in front of my daughter." His voice cracked, fury and heartbreak colliding. Vanessa tried to speak, but her lips trembled. The room no longer belonged to her, it belonged to the truth, and in the center of it, Sarah stood firm, Emily's small hand clasped in hers, the glow of the ring reflecting in her determined eyes. Vanessa's perfect facade cracked wide open. Her chest rose and fell in quick, uneven breaths as she clutched the ring tighter, desperate to keep control. The crowd pressed closer, a tide of murmurs swelling into outrage. The judge dropped his folder of documents in shock, pages scattering across the marble floor like fallen leaves. "This is absurd," Vanessa barked, her voice trembling despite her attempt at authority. "It's a setup." She thrust her hand toward Sarah. "She's nothing but hired help trying to ruin me." But Sarah didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "That ring isn't an accessory. It's a weapon, a digital key that forges Daniel's signature and drains everything he owns." A tense silence gripped the hall. All eyes turned back to Vanessa. The woman who had walked in draped in diamonds now looked cornered. Her hand pressed against her gown as if to shield herself from the truth. Then fate intervened. The security guard nearest the projector yanked out his tablet in a panic, trying to shut down the feed of damning documents. The device slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a metallic thud. In that instant, the ring on Vanessa's finger pulsed again, louder this time. Click, sending another wave of red-stamped contracts flooding the screen. Gasps turned into shouts. It's real. Someone cried. She forged everything. Vanessa panicked. With a choked cry, she ripped the ring from her finger and tried to shove it into her pocket. But Sarah lunged first. Her calloused hand, rough from years of work, snatched it from the floor before Vanessa could blink. She raised it high, her voice cutting through the uproar like a blade. Here is the proof. The tiny embedded chip glimmered under the chandelier lights. A sinister glow that spoke louder than words. Guests surged forward, phones raised, capturing every second. Vanessa stumbled back, her face draining of color. Daniel, Sarah said firmly, turning to him, she was seconds away from signing away your empire. Daniel's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the woman he thought he loved. You were going to destroy me in front of my daughter, he said, voice ragged with betrayal. Vanessa's mask shattered completely. Desperation warped her features as she pointed at Sarah. It was her. She planted this. She wants you for herself. She rushed forward, fury in every step. Before Sarah could react, Emily darted in front of her like a shield, doll clutched against her chest. Her small voice rose, shaking but unyielding. I saw you lying. I heard you on the phone. You can't trick my daddy. The hall fell silent. The courage of a 6-year-old cut sharper than any accusation. Vanessa froze, trembling, unable to meet the child's unwavering gaze. Daniel dropped to his knees, pulling Emily into his arms, his eyes wet with emotion. You saved me, he whispered into her hair. The guests erupted in a chorus of outrage and applause. Phones flashed, recording what would soon be headline news. And in the center of the storm, Sarah held the glowing ring aloft, the undeniable proof of betrayal, the symbol of a queen dethroned. Vanessa Harrington, once untouchable, now stood exposed, stripped bare, not by wealth or power, but by the courage of a child and the resolve of a nanny who refused to stay silent. The courtroom was no longer a wedding, it had become a tribunal. Voices rose in outrage, guests leaning over the pews to get a closer look at the drama unraveling before their eyes. Vanessa Harrington, her gown disheveled, her once glamorous makeup streaked by sweat, trembled as the judge raised a stern hand. Open the bag, he ordered, pointing at Vanessa's clutch. Reluctantly, her fingers fumbled with the clasp. Out spilled a stack of hidden documents, contracts of fraudulent property sales, falsified donation receipts, and bank slips tied to shadowy accounts. Each page landed on the marble floor like another nail in the coffin of her scheme. Gasps filled the room, followed by a stunned hush. The judge's voice rang with authority. This is no marriage. This is fraud. Effective immediately, this union is annulled, and Ms. Harrington will face charges of forgery and conspiracy. Applause broke out, not the kind meant for romance, but for justice. Security escorted Vanessa away as the crowd booed, her jeweled heels scraping against the floor, the sound of defeat. Daniel, shaken but resolute, knelt before Emily, pulling her close. You saved me, sweetheart, he whispered, his voice breaking. His eyes lifted toward Sarah, overflowing with gratitude. And you saved us both. Sarah lowered her gaze, humility in her posture. I only spoke the truth, she murmured. But deep down, everyone in that hall knew it had taken courage greater than any wealth or title to do what she had done. In that moment, it became clear, the strongest shields aren't money or status. They are honesty and courage. Sometimes, the most powerful voices come from those we overlook, a child's innocence, a worker's quiet bravery. They remind us that truth, no matter how fragile it seems, can topple even the grandest lies. So ask yourself, when the moment comes, will you choose silence, or will you choose truth? Even if it costs you? If this story moved you, leave a comment below on Whisper Fable. What would you have done in Sarah's place? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the power of honesty, and subscribe to Whisper Fable so you won't miss the next story that just might touch your heart.